Many ancient cultures had beer gods. The Sumerians, for example, worshipped Ninkasi, who presided over every aspect of the brewing process and personally prepared the brews quaffed by her fellow deities. Aegir, Norse god of the sea, was famed for his golden brewing kettle and self-filling ale horns. The Lithuanians revered a god of beer, a goddess of beer, and an entirely distinct god of beer fermentation. But the Romans, like the Greeks before them, had no god of beer. Nor did they want one. For the Greeks and Romans, beer, or as the Greeks sometimes called it, barley wine, was uncouth, unsavory, and unsuitable for civilized lips. Beer, in a word, was barbaric, guzzled by those who had not yet tasted the fruits of civilization. It brought out the worst in a people. The Pannonians, for example, were said to be angry and murderous, not least because they had nothing better to drink than beer. A few classical authors admitted that, under certain circumstances, beer could actually taste rather good. Xenophon, for example, observed that Armenian beer, which was customarily sipped through long reed straws, was delicious once you had acquired the taste. More typical, however, was the opinion of the Roman historian Tacitus, who likened German beer to spoiled wine. Beer was also considered unhealthy. Aristotle claimed that those who drank too much of it would fall on their backs, stupefied. The physician Dioscorides analyzed the properties of two varieties of beer. One, he declared, induced flatulence. The other brought on bad humors and headaches. The attitude of the Greco-Roman elite toward beer is neatly summarized by an epigram of the Emperor Julian, which opines that wine has the fragrance of nectar, while beer smells like a goat. In the face of such cultural hostility, it might be assumed that the Greeks and Romans never drank beer. That may be true in the case of the classical Greeks. The Romans, however, drank a lot of beer. In parts of the empire, in fact, they drank little else. Although wine was always prevalent in Italy, Greece, and other regions climatically suited to viticulture, beer was the beverage of choice for millions, from the Scottish moors to the wastes of Upper Egypt. Before we immerse ourselves in Roman beer drinking, a word about this video's sponsor. Shaker and Spoon is a monthly subscription service that delivers the craft cocktail experience right to your door with themed boxes full of ingredients and tips. I asked Shaker and Spoon to send me the Negroni 2 box. It arrived with helpful instructions and all the ingredients I needed to make 3 different Italian-themed cocktails: hibiscus tea and several different bitters, balsamic vinegar and coconut oil, strawberry and pandan syrups, orange grapefruit cordial, and sparkling spring water. Allured by alliteration, I made the Capri Crush cocktail, a blend of Campari and gin with sparkling water, orange grapefruit cordial, and bitters. I had no problems following Shaker and Spoon's directions, and the finished cocktail made me feel, just for a moment, like I was back in Italy. Join Shaker and Spoon today and explore the world of craft cocktails. To save $20 on your first box, click on the link in the description and use the code ToldenStone, or simply go to shakerandspoon.com/ToldenStone. Back to beer. Most of the Roman Empire's beer drinkers were concentrated in 2 regions: Spain, Gaul, and Britain in the northwest, and Egypt in the southeast. To Romanize, Gaul, roughly modern France, was the stereotypical beer-drinking land. Although southern Gaul had long been dotted with vineyards, Gauls continued to brew for centuries after the Roman conquest, quaffing beer from mighty aurochs horns at feasts, or at taverns from modest clay cups marked, "Fill me with beer." The beer-drinking culture of Egypt was equally potent, and, from the Roman perspective, equally strange. Although wine was produced in Egypt from a very early date, beer was the favorite drink of all classes, to the point that the hieroglyph for beverage was a picture of a beer jar. Many varieties were brewed, from the dark beer and sweet beer served in taverns to the beer of eternity stockpiled in tombs. The Roman conquest of Egypt had little effect on beer consumption. Centuries later, the great Dr. Galen could still call saltfish and beer the Alexandrian diet. On the other side of the empire, the arrival of Roman soldiers in northern Britain actually boosted local beer production. An official stationed at a fort along Hadrian's Wall asked a colleague to order more beer from local brewers, some of whom were likely retired soldiers. If so, they may have honed their craft while still serving in the ranks, since Roman forts often had their own breweries. Roman beer tasted quite different from its modern counterparts. Though usually made from barley, as it is now, and brewed in the familiar way, Roman beer tended to be sour, and often had to be sweetened with honey or fruits. It wasn't always filtered, and even when it was, the product was much cloudier and grainier than modern beer. Finally, since hops were not added, it tended to spoil quickly. To judge from Diocletian's price edict, beer was remarkably cheap, costing only a quarter of even the least expensive unaged wine. It was also remarkably common. Associations of brewers are attested both in Egypt and on the German frontier, and breweries were attached to some of the grandest Roman villas in the Rhineland. But it never lost its bad reputation. One late Roman emperor was mocked as a drinker of beer. Thanks to its low cultural status, beer was gradually replaced by wine in many parts of the empire. Gallic beer was an early casualty. Even before the coming of Rome, Gallic elites had begun to import massive quantities of Italian wine, sold at such extravagant prices that a slave was sometimes exchanged for a single jar of wine. During the mid-imperial era, as grapevines enveloped the countryside, wine became the preferred beverage in most parts of Gaul. An even more dramatic transformation took place in Egypt, where cheap local wine virtually replaced beer over the course of the 4th century. In Western Europe, at least, beer was saved by the collapse of the Roman Empire. The Germanic invaders brought with them a robust beer-drinking culture, which substantially enhanced beer's social standing. A Roman physician working for one of the new barbarian kings found it within himself to actually praise beer as both delicious and nutritious. The empire had fallen, but beer would live on. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting Tilden Stone on Patreon. You might also enjoy my book, Naked Statues, Fat Gladiators, and War Elephants. Thanks for watching.